We're delighted that you're here at the museum once again as we now debut what we just broke ground for back in January, the new Tischer Visitor Center. After many months that most of us could not have anticipated, it's especially rewarding to return to the museum today to celebrate completion of this project during this very challenging year. We want to extend a special thanks to our government and community leaders for being with us today, including New York State Senator Joe Robach. Good morning, Joe. New York State Assembly Member Harry Bronson. Harry. Vinny Esposito, Finger Lakes Director of Empire State Development. Hello, Vinny. Monroe County Executive Adam Bello. Morning, Adam. Monroe County Clerk Jamie Romeo. Morning, Jamie. City of Rochester Deputy Mayor James Smith. Gloria Hunter, Community Liaison for New York State Senator Rich Funke. Kevin Donahue, representing the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce. It is also my great pleasure to introduce you to our lead supporters for our Visitor Center project. Thomas N. Tischer, PhD, a loyal patron of the museum and the new Visitor Center's namesake. Good morning, Tom. ESL Federal Credit Union, represented today by President and CEO Fahim Massoud. The New York State Council of the Arts, on the Arts, represented by Executive Director Mara Manis and Council members Deborah Ronen and Scott Eberly. Additional generous funding from our major donors, combined with the foundation of support originated by our lead partners, has enabled us all to be here today. Bruce Barnes will soon tell us more about all of our donors who have joined together to make this transformative project a reality. The Visitor Center project is a wonderful example of all that can be accomplished through the combined commitment of individuals, a prominent local company, New York State, and private charitable foundations. We couldn't be more pleased to launch this new era in the museum's history with those who have contributed to the success of this endeavor. So it's now my pleasure to turn the program over to Bruce Barnes, the Ronadonna Fielding Director of the George Eastman Museum. Bruce?
Not sure whether I should do this with or without a mask. Can you understand me with the mask on? Great. Thank you, Kevin. I'm delighted to welcome all of you to the museum today and to extend a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us online via the live stream of this morning's celebratory event. As we gather in front of the new Thomas Tischer Visitor Center this morning, please join me in an enthusiastic round of applause, which I guess we've already provided, for Thomas Tischer. And we'll come to our other lead donors in a while. I also want to thank Flynn Battaglia Architects. I'm not responsible for that. That's thunder rolling? Okay. Please join me in congratulating and thanking our architects, Flynn Battaglia Architects, represented here today by Michael Lennon, Chris Less, and Megan Brooks, for their great vision for this project. And also great thanks to the Pike Company, which has been a terrific partner as the general contractor on this project. And we're thrilled and honored that Tom Judson has joined us today, and we're enormously grateful for the terrific work that was done by Dan Sinnott, who was the project director, and by Ed Brown, who was the site director, I'll call him. I'm not sure that I have his title correct, but they both did a fabulous job, and you'll see here I think, the results of a great partnership among client, architect, and general contractor, and we're deeply appreciative of that. We could not be more grateful to Tom Tischer, ESL Federal Credit Union, and the New York State Council on the Arts for their extraordinary support of this admittedly ambitious visitor center project. These leading supporters were joined by all of the major funders who have made this project possible, some of whom were with us for the January groundbreaking, and others who have joined us in intervening months. I deeply appreciate their generosity and look forward to recognizing their contributions shortly. For now, I must begin my remarks by expressing my utmost appreciation for Thomas N. Tischer, PhD, the Visitor Center's founding benefactor. A loyal friend of the Eastman Museum for nearly 40 years, Tom has provided invaluable support for the Visitor Center that extends far beyond his extraordinary philanthropy. The project originated from our shared desire to simply make the museum's entrance more convenient and accessible for our visitors. But thanks to his generosity and shared vision of so many people, the project evolved into something that will truly transform the experience of our visitors by a convenient, centrally located entrance and extraordinary new guest amenities, all designed with our visitors in mind. This is a vision that Tom shared with us right from the start, and he has remained right by our side throughout the whole process, from providing an initial donation of $100,000 to engage architects for the project, to his $1 million gift that matched a grant from the New York State Council on the Arts, to his subsequent commitment of several $100,000 to ensure the inclusion of a new multi-purpose hall in the project. He participated in our selection of the architectural firm Flynn Battaglia and made constructive contributions to the design development process. Tom's genuine desire to be involved in the formulation and evolution of the project mirrors his decades of commitment to the Eastman Museum. I am so very pleased that the Thomas Tischer Visitor Center will provide a warm welcome to our visitors and firmly establish a new entrance and visitor center that will provide our guests with an experience commensurate with the standing of the George Eastman Museum. As we continue to navigate these challenging times, we strive to make the Eastman Museum a place of respite and discovery for our visitors, and are most grateful to Tom for enabling us to pursue this vision. His friendship, generosity, and passion for our mission has led us to a new era for the museum, and it is truly appropriate that we dedicate the Thomas Tischer Visitor Center today. With profound gratitude, I am pleased to introduce Thomas Tischer.
I am highly pleased to see what we have accomplished, and I'd like to just sort of review and give you my perspective of what we have here and how it will exist for the future. And as I start, one of the first things you may have noticed is the colorama. That solely is due to Bruce, because one day we were talking rather casually about the project and the problems that we would have with the vision behind it, and lo and behold, when Bruce suggested the colorama, I was surprised very pleasantly, and here it is. And I think it's a good introduction to the museum, because remember, it was at Times Square for a period and then moved over to 6th Avenue, Avenue of the Americas, and we have a 80% reproduction, which will change with time, and I think it's great. So let's move around, and we have a little building right next to it that when I always used to come here, I never paid much attention to that, but that along with what we have here, has now become, remember, this was part of George Eastman's estate, and where you're sitting now was part of the gardens, and well, he really had a farm, even with a cow. And we have to remember everything that we have here is really due to George Eastman and in his memory. So we're bringing things back a little bit. But that building now, to my mind, has a new appearance. Right behind it, you may notice the windowed structure. That was, remember, George built this back in 1903, and things were quite different then. And the way to get around was by horse. So what you needed was a stable. That is his stables. And that, for a long time, they had bricked. It served various purposes after George left. And now, with the windows and being a multi-purpose center and redesigned from its 1964-65 appearance, has become a new, very useful, all-purpose center. And as you go inside, it's being used as luncheon for today, and I think it's a remarkable transformation of a building. If we continue around, I'd like to sort of pass over this part of it for just a second, and we have the Dryden Theater. And now it is connected, finally, interiorly. It sort of stood by itself, and when you start talking about a stable and you start talking about a building like that, you're talking about a living structure almost. In other words, buildings should be not built for a single purpose, but should adapt to the times. And I think we've done that because we've finally been able to tie everything together in a very useful single purpose by having a visitor center and our entrance pavilion. So what's behind the pavilion? As you sit here now, there will be two phases sort of to this building, because as you look now, you can see inside, and what you're seeing inside is a structure that at one time, when you had the stables, you needed functioning buildings to connect with the stables, and initially it was that purpose. We have, because it is a historic building, preserved that facade very nicely, and that was initially an adjunct to the stables. But of course, time moved on from 1903, and when you got into the automobile age, George did want to participate in the auto age, and he needed a garage. So that became the garage and the workshop for the garage. And we've preserved that facade, but behind it now, as you make a tour of the building, you'll see our new adaptation. We have a new gift shop, we have a new cloakroom, and like at one time Bruce was just casually saying we didn't even have a place for the docents, which I believe always, the docents are a very vital part of any museum. We now have a suitable area there, and over to the left-hand side, as I would be facing it, be able to assemble there, get a feeling of the different features that the museum has to offer, and be able to promenade on one level without steps to come up past our dual cafe and have a choice of going either to the archives or to the galleries. If we turn right there, then we would have a separate entrance to be able to go up to the George Eastman house, which is a very important part of the complex. So I think we've been able to tie all those things together, and as you go into the building, you'll have new vistas, particularly of the gardens. The gardens are going to be reformed too, and I think the gardens are a very important part of this museum because we're one of the few museums that has what you would call original purposed gardens. In other words, we're trying to bring the gardens back to the visitor experience as they were at the time when George lived here and it was his estate. So I think we're tying things together, and I get a nice feel for the buildings where you can take an existing building, have it grow with additions through the period of time. And if you look in the world and through my travels, I've seen two examples of this. One would be the Louvre, and in Paris, where E.M. Pye did the triangle structures, which I think have transformed that. And above all, if you come here in the U.S. to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, there is again an example of a living part where as you go through the period of time, people contribute, enlarge, adapt, and that Boston Museum of Fine Art, when you go in there, I go in there for two purposes: to see what the museum has, but also to see the people. And the people of Boston relate to that building. That building has a unique function, and I hope we do that with this structure that we have created here. So I feel very good about all this. From the time that Bruce and I sat down, and I enjoyed working with the architects. They had a concept that helped us, because remember, sometimes adapting an existing structure and complex to something new is more difficult than just building something that stands isolated by itself. So I like to use the term living museum softly, not in a real sense, but I think you know what I mean. So again, I'm very glad. I was highly pleased to see it grow and through its building, and now we have virtually completed it at one stage, and I think we can be very proud of it. I think it will serve the people of Rochester area very nicely, and I hope they enjoy this, and I think we should enjoy it and appreciate it. And remember, it is dedicated to George Eastman, a man that did wondrous things and was very generous and is well known and remembered in Rochester. So I thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Established in 1960, 5 years before the National Endowment for the Arts, the New York State Council on the Arts is dedicated to preserving and expanding the rich and diverse cultural resources that are and will become the heritage of New York citizens. Its 17 council members include representatives from around New York State, including Deborah Ronan, a leading advocate for contemporary art in Rochester and a good friend of the Eastman Museum, and Scott Eberly, who is here today from Buffalo, and we thank him for making the trip. We are pleased that they have both joined us for this ceremony. The Council is manifestly committed to both to supporting arts around the state, providing more than $43 million to 2,500 organizations this fiscal year, and to recognizing and fostering excellence. Over the past 3 decades, the New York State Council on the Arts has awarded grants totaling more than $3.7 million to the George Eastman Museum, including vital general operating support. It has supported film preservation, photography exhibitions, education, and other programs at the Eastman Museum. Its $1 million capital grant for our visitor center was essential in our ability to pursue this project. Mara Manis, the Executive Director of the New York State Council on the Arts, has a deep understanding of the missions and challenges of arts institutions. We are honored and grateful that she has traveled from New York City to participate in today's ceremony. It is my privilege to welcome Maura Manis back to the George Eastman Museum.
Yay, I get to take that off. Okay. Thank you, Bruce, so much. And we are so grateful for your tremendous leadership. It is inspiring and exceptional, and especially during these unprecedented times that we have been living through. On behalf of Governor Cuomo, the New York State Legislature, and our entire team at the New York State Council of the Arts, our staff and our council members, we applaud everyone who made this project a reality. It is a transformative project, not just for the city, but for the region and the state. As everyone knows here, the museum is one of our state's cultural anchors. And we do believe that it's going to be ushering a new era for the museum. And I have to say, as the wife of an architect, I do believe this incredible design sets an inspiring stage for the collections that lie within. Being able to bear witness today to the realization of Tom Tischer's vision, an unprecedented gift, got me back on an airplane after 7 months, and there's no place that I'd rather be than with all of you. Thinking back to the groundbreaking in January and the unbelievable journey we have all taken together since then, none of us could imagine the context in which this unveiling would occur. The Eastman Museum, as I said, is one of our state's cultural anchors, standing as a testament to the innovative spirit of its namesake. The museum is a guardian of the images of ourselves over the past 130 years, and its world-renowned collections hold up a mirror to our collective history, as well as the profoundly historical times in which we are living through. NYSCA couldn't be more thrilled to be providing the $1 million capital grant in this project in partnership with the REDC and Empire State Development. I am proud to share the stage with all of the project supporters, including the incredible village that took to make this a reality, and Tom Tischer, the ESL Federal Credit Union, and the George Eastman Board of Trustees. This private-public partnership is a fine example of the kind of growth and development that helps create bigger futures for our city and our state. As the Eastman Museum embarks on its next era and the arts continue to reopen across the state, we recognize the incredible efforts of the essential workers who have made our reopening a reality. We also recognize the immense impact of cultural anchors in our communities and how they support not just the staff and the artists of those organizations, but many local businesses and their workers. Moving images have seen our country through some of our greatest challenges. It's the minute-by-minute reflection of our lives, and the Eastman's collection, which reminds us how precious that reflection is to our past and informing our future. In celebrating this new chapter of the legacy of George Eastman, we are also celebrating the arts' unyielding potential of the arts and cultural organizations across the state. Our gratitude to everyone who's made today possible and has guaranteed that the Eastman Museum's future will burn brighter than ever before. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Maura. The George Eastman Museum is grateful to the New York State Council on the Arts, Empire State Development, and the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council for making possible this very generous and essential commitment to the Visitor Center project. George Eastman founded Eastman Savings and Loan Association, the predecessor to ESL Federal Credit Union, 100 years ago. Deeply concerned about the welfare of Eastman Kodak Company employees and of the community, he believed that the best ways his employees could invest in the future of their community was through home ownership. As Mr. Eastman was an exemplar of philanthropy and community service, ESL Federal Credit Union is a leader in corporate philanthropy and community service in Rochester. It has established and munificently provided the ESL Charitable Foundation, which has become one of the leading charitable foundations focused on the greater Rochester area. Other than the Eastman Kodak Company, ESL Federal Credit Union is the corporation that has provided the largest cumulative support to the George Eastman Museum. Our institutions have been close partners for 2 decades. Given our shared connection to George Eastman and our long-standing collaboration, we were thrilled last spring when ESL Federal Credit Union agreed to pay $1 million to acquire the naming rights to the newly constructed ESL Federal Credit Union Pavilion, which is the new portion of the structure of the Visitor Center. The new glass and steel structure you see behind me will welcome visitors to our museum while preserving the historic facade of George Eastman's garage. ESL Federal Credit Union's $1 million commitment enabled the museum to decide that it could proceed with the construction of the Visitor Center in January 2020. If it were not for their commitment, we wouldn't all be here today shivering. And now it's my great pleasure to welcome Fahim Massoud, the President and Chief Executive Officer of ESL Federal Credit Union, who has dedicated himself personally to the company's commitment to community service. He serves on the board of directors of the United Way of Greater Rochester, Jiva Theater Center, and Lifetime Healthcare Companies, and its Rochester Regional Advisory Board. With great appreciation for his contributions to our community and his collaboration with and support of the George Eastman Museum, it is my pleasure to welcome Fahim Massoud.
Thank you, Bruce, and you were right this morning when you said I haven't caught up with the weather yet, and boy, is it cold out here. Good morning, everyone. It really is a pleasure to be here and see so many familiar faces after many, many months. It's my first event in about 6 months, first time I'm putting on a tie, and much as I don't like ties, I'm really thankful to be doing that right now. But as I said, it's a pleasure to be here with you today on what is truly an exciting and monumental occasion for the George Eastman Museum. Thinking about where we are today and how far we've come since the groundbreaking event in January, it was no small feat for the museum to see this project through to completion. What would have been a significant project in any other year experienced unprecedented challenges in 2020 due to the pandemic. For that, we at ESL and all of us here today owe a great deal of gratitude to Bruce, Kevin, and the entire team at the museum for pushing the project forward and making it possible for all of us to be here today. So thank you. The arts and culture community here in Greater Rochester and across the nation has never faced a more tumultuous time than what we are going through right now as we navigate the ongoing pandemic. Arts and culture play a critical, crucial role in the vitality of our community. They breathe life into our neighborhoods and into our lives. A century ago, George Eastman invested much of his fortune into arts, culture, and educational institutions because he understood the critical role they play in the development and progress of a community. With the spirit of his philanthropic endeavor in mind, the time has never been more urgent than now to support the arts, support culture, and support our museums. We must work together as a community to maintain the vital essence that these institutions provide to our lives. At ESL, we state our purpose is to help our community thrive and prosper. Throughout the past 7 months, that purpose, inspired by George Eastman's spirit to build a stronger community, has only been reinforced at ESL. We are celebrating our 100th anniversary this year. While what was supposed to be a year of celebration has become more somber, it is moments like what we are all gathered here this morning for that gives us so much hope. The strong, resilient community that Eastman sought to build is very much alive today. We have navigated unprecedented circumstances together as a community in order to lift up our friends, family, and neighbors to help us through these times. We are honored to have supported the museum's Visitor Center project. What was initially an ideal partnership formed in celebration of a new era for the museum and ESL as we enter our 2nd century in existence has now become a testament to the positive, productive, resilient work that can be done when institutions collaborate. No one person or institution can go at it alone in these through these historic difficulties. The collaboration we have seen has been beyond inspiring. Today would not be possible without the work of individuals, not-for-profits, the public and private organizations, all coming together for the advancement of a vital local institution. The vision for this magnificent project truly took a village to make it a reality. We owe a great deal of gratitude to Mr. Tischer for your support of this vital project from the onset. We all would not be here without your donation kickstarting this adventure. Thank you for your generosity. On behalf of all of us at ESL, we wish the sincerest of congratulations to Bruce, his hardworking team at the George Eastman Museum, its board of trustees, Mr. Tischer, and all of those individuals and institutions and government agencies who have contributed funds to help make the completion of this transformational project possible. Thank you.
Monroe County has provided ongoing financial support to the Eastman Museum. The County of Monroe Industrial Development Agency has been a steadfast supporter of our unique annual Nitrate Picture Show Film Festival, which we are eager to see return when health conditions permit. The Monroe County Industrial Development Corporation generously provided $30,000 grant award for the educational elements of the Visitor Center project, which you'll see along the concourse and elsewhere in the building. A lifelong Monroe County resident, Adam Bello served as Irondequoit Town Supervisor and Monroe County Clerk before his election as Monroe County Executive. With thanks for his participation in our ceremony today, I welcome County Executive Adam Bello back to the George Eastman Museum.
Good morning, and thank you, Bruce, for that generous introduction. It's great to be back here with you again. Kevin, it's wonderful to be with you, and Thomas, we can't thank you enough on behalf of a very grateful community for your investment in really this treasure. I mean, this new addition here today will help foster a new generation of thinkers and help preserve our community's rich history and innovation. The truth is that almost every person across the world has had his or her life impacted by George Eastman. An entrepreneur, an innovator, an inventor, a leader, a philanthropist, Eastman revolutionized the motion picture industry, photography, and film. He made it possible for people with just a small click of a button to capture memories and tell stories in new and exciting ways. And I think when I was here at the groundbreaking earlier this year, I think it was actually my first groundbreaking as a county executive, I think I reflected, I'm sure I did, on my time as a county clerk, and I know we're joined by our county clerk, Jamie Romeo, today, who's going to have the same memory. One of my favorite things I always said I'd like to do as a clerk was we held on to incorporation papers for companies that had their start in Monroe County. And one of the incorporation papers that we're charged with keeping, and now Jamie has them in safekeeping, is the incorporation papers for Eastman Kodak Company. And when children came from the business programs, the entrepreneurial programs around the county, one of the things I love to do is take out those papers and show them the signatures of George Eastman and Henry Strong and all those leaders and the founders of Rochester and Monroe County, and then show them, look out the window and see the big tower with Kodak at the top and say, one of you could be the next George Eastman. And it's inspiring people to change the world and to understand how the world is changing and what our role is and the impact is that we can inspire our young people to rise up and meet the challenge. And who knew at that time, when I was a clerk, or just earlier this year when we were breaking ground on this, who knew how much the world would change in just the next 6 or 7 months? And how important it is that we teach our young people more than just what we learned in school, but we have to teach them to think. We have to teach them to innovate. We have to teach them for a world that doesn't exist yet. And that's why investments in institutions like the George Eastman House are so critically important. And that's why I'm so grateful am proud that Monroe County has chosen to invest in the George Eastman House. I want to recognize Ann Burr. I think I just saw you from the Comida board. I want to thank Comida for your investment as well. And I want to just make sure that the investments that we're making here, and I thank everyone for this, that we continue to inspire that next generation, continue to invest in the history of Rochester and Monroe County, because it will inform our future. So thank you once again. I appreciate it. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
James Smith, the Deputy Mayor of the City of Rochester.
Well, thank you, Bruce and Kevin and the entire team here at the Eastman Museum. What a great day this is. I shared with you when I was here in January that my dad was a photo engraver for over 40 years. And so for me, it's always special to be here, particularly because Rochester's imaging economy literally put food on our table when I was growing up. And so it is always a great pleasure for me to be here and be a part of this. And Vinny Esposito from the state of New York said, it seems like we just were here for the groundbreaking, and now this is done. And I think that's pretty remarkable and a great insight. On that note, I'm grateful on behalf of the city and the mayor to thank the state, and particularly we want to thank the governor and Vinny and their teams, as well as the New York State Council on the Arts and Mara, as well as our state legislators for being a part of making this a reality. It's so very important. And if I could, I'd also like to thank as well, again, Mr. Tischer, not just for this, but the fact that you came to Rochester with your education, your knowledge, and you turned that intellectual property into an asset for Eastman Kodak, helping make them successful, but also helping make our community so very successful as a result. So we're grateful for that investment that you've made over a lifetime. And we're really pleased that you were able to do this for our community.
I also came here because it's warmer than Wisconsin.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that leads me to Fahim and ESL. We want to thank you too, and we'll hope in a minute we can get you inside and warm you up. The mayor couldn't be here because she's actually at another ribbon cutting for La Marqueta, the project in the International Plaza in Northeast Rochester on La Avenida. A very exciting project. But, you know, it's funny, at a time when we are dealing with a pandemic, what a wonderful testament to our community that we have two amazing ribbon cuttings going on at the same time. And I think that's very important, and both of them are a testament to Rochester. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that since we did this in January, people have been working here at a time when jobs have not been plentiful, and this investment in our community has meant a livelihood for so many folks who have been able to be a part of that. And this museum continues to be a part of that arts culture, the arts and industry, really, that provides so many jobs for our city. And I was struck, I live in the ABC Street, so I'm within walking distance of here. Obviously, I don't walk here as much as I should. But, you know, I've watched this progress going on, and it's been exciting, but I'm also struck by the history, right? So think back, you know, in history, if you will. George Eastman was here in 1918, living here with his family and his staff, and went through a pandemic, just like we are. They were doing things outside. They were wearing masks, hopefully, and we continue to do that. But it was certainly a tough time, just like now. Soldiers were coming home from wars. And from that came some very exciting things for Rochester. And I think, Kevin, you said it. This is an exciting, you know, this is the new history we're making for the Eastman Museum, but it's also part of the history we're making for our city. I think the Hiram Sibley building was built in the early 1920s, right? So shortly after the pandemic, Rochester was rising up even then. And so we're doing that again today. And I'm struck by that history, and I'm grateful that we live in a community that is so resilient and so vibrant. You know, so many challenges we had. We think about this as 1920. Women got the right to vote. But in 1918, during that pandemic, so many people were working to make sure that those voiceless Americans had a voice. And some of that is going on in our city now today. So history really repeats itself. We're living in a very exciting time. There was a historic debate last night. I don't know if any of you saw it. I did. And I want to congratulate our county clerk, Jamie Romeo. It was the other debate she was involved in. And if you missed it, Jamie, that was a great job. Thank you. But on behalf of the mayor, I just want to thank everyone involved. I have a special plaque. It wouldn't be official without a plaque from the city, and I'll leave that with you. But again, thanks to everyone for making this happen. Thank you.
We are honored. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Harry Bronson, New York State Assembly member.
Thank you, Bruce, and for your leadership in getting this project done, and Kevin and the board, and certainly Thomas. And I'm not going to use these anyway. Your leadership in getting the project done, and Thomas, for your investment and your leadership as well. Thomas, you made a comment, and it brought me back to my college days when I was toying with the idea, do I continue with my pre-law program or do I get into design work? And and so I took a bunch of design courses, and we always talked about the aesthetics and the functionality. And you talked about combining these buildings and making sure that it was functional with a purpose, but it's also beautiful. And it's welcoming. It honors the history of the buildings, while at the same time having a modern entrance that is absolutely beautiful and stunning. And so your investment is offering beauty for our community, but it's also offering the cultural aspects of our community. And as County Executive Bello mentioned, a place where our young people can learn, a place where our young people can imagine, a place where they can innovate in their minds and understand what came before them so that they can be the decision makers and the innovators of our future. So it's a wonderful gift, Tom. Thank you. And thank you all for being part of this. The Council on the Arts, thank you. ESL. What you did here today, or what we're celebrating here today, isn't a building. What we're celebrating here today is our culture, and it's our community, and it's the gift to our children and grandchildren for years to come. So thank you very much.
And it's now my great pleasure to introduce a longtime friend of the George Eastman Museum, New York Senator Joe Relbach.
Thank you, and I really will be short, which is not my strong suit, but I just was going to say, for us George Eastman families and lifelong residents of Rochester, in about 3 months, this is going to be a balmy day. This is really a great thing. I want to thank Tom, Fasood, ESL, Dawn for your contribution, everybody that made this happen, but focus just a minute on our portion of this. And I want to thank Mara and the council. This is exactly what we envision when we put that money in the state budget. Collaborative efforts, not only to promote the arts, but I look at this as not only the legacy of George Eastman, who, by the way, if you haven't read the book, I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here, read that book. Everything Tom said is true. He was not only a genius, a visionary, an entrepreneur, but he was a very, very benevolent guy in a lot of things, very quietly, without credit, that made him really a very unique person. But he is not only iconic to Rochester, but to the world, because think of what it would be like in the whole imaging industry and the impact it's had not only on the economy, but on culture altogether. Without him, it wouldn't be. So it's great. And what people have done here, working together, I'm glad New York State played a part of it, the county, government, private investment all together, is we've taken a gem and really added some extra sparkle, which will not only keep that legacy going, but also add to our tourism here in New York State, which is a huge, huge part of our economy. So job well done to everybody, and thank you for getting across the goal line, Bruce.
my pleasure to welcome you to the Thomas Tischer Visitor Center.
Harold, how you doing? Unbelievable fast.